Hi friends, welcome back to my craft room. This is Lauren Taylor and I'm grateful to have you here for a Fandom Friday video. It's also a brand new release from Kindred Stamps, so I'm really excited to be featuring the Immortals stamp set in today's project, but I will show coloring of all 5 characters in today's video. I have already stamped the Immortal stamp set, and again, brand new release. I'll have their shop, the Kindred shop, linked down below. And I'm using the Immortal stamp set to create 3 cards for the release, but I'm only going to show 1 in this video. You can see the other 2 over on my blog or Instagram. They're pretty simple cards, very easy layouts. One of them features a vampire and his familiar, and the other one features a non-traditional vampire, and it's a light up card using a halo light from Pear Blossom Press. Very simple designs, but I thought it'd be fun to make that particular character's card a light up card. And then the 2 remaining characters, they are husband and wife vampires. I'm going to use them on the card today because they are my favorite characters and I quote them quite often in my house. Actually, I quote a lot of the characters just in my day-to-day life, but I'm just going to show 1 card today in the video, but I will show all of the coloring. So you can see I've already gotten started here in my video of my coloring process. I've stamped all 5 characters from this stamp set. There are also 4 sentiment stamps in this set. There are some really great ones. So I'm going to use the Our Love is Immortal in today's stamp set. My other cards feature I ran out of creepy paper, so this greeting card will have to do. And I love your energy. There's one more sentiment that says you seem familiar. So a lot of great fun sentiments for this fandom. So I have stamped all the characters on Express It blending white cardstock, and I used my Ink on 3 Blackout Hybrid Detail ink, and I'm coloring with Ohuhu Honolulu Bee art markers. I am just showing the caps here on screen like I normally do. If you have any questions or specific, questions about my coloring, please just let me know in the comments. I tend to chit chat during my coloring because I can only say I start with the darkest, move to the mid-tone, and finish with the lightest. Only a couple times before I'm sure you're like, okay, I got it, Lauren. You start with the darkest, move to the mid-tone, and then use the lightest to completely color it in. But I like to share what colors I use in case you are trying to replicate my coloring using this stamp set or maybe a similar stamp set if you're recreating this fandom. So while I chit chat, I'm coloring here the first vampire of the bunch. He wears a lot of fur, so I tried to do kind of like a speckly dotted look for the fur vest that he's wearing. I think that's a vest or scarf, depending on the outfit that he wears. And I really went with like leather and just rich reds for his outfit. And then I'm using really pale colors for the skin of the 3 traditional vampires, because they are quite pale. I wanted them to, they are, definitely like people of color, like they're not from here, they're from like the olden, I don't know, it's like European areas. I'm not really good at geography, but they're not from the US of A. And so while they do, I would think would be a lot tanner, they are vampires. So their skin is a little more on the pale side. So I tried to use paler colors, a little bit more kind of yellowy colors, just to make them look like they don't have, blood pumping through their body. So I am, just coloring in the skin for these 3 vampires. It does look a little dark when I color, but that's just because the alcohol in the markers just needs to evaporate a little bit and just leave that color behind. So as you can see, my first character's face has lightened up quite a bit then from when I colored it. For my second vampire, I'm going to do brown hair, but that same skin tone, and I'm going to give him like a magenta-y suit. I wanted it to feel like he's wearing kind of one of his classy suits, so it's going to be more on the like purpley red color. I was just looking at pictures of the characters from show and media, from the show and different media pictures of them to just figure out what would be a really fun color outfit. And I knew that I wanted to create a black and red background for this character because I'm going to make the card of him and his wife in today's video. So I thought using more, purple, magenta, red colors for his suit would be really good, knowing that I was going to color in the female vampire in more black tones. So just wanted to bring in some more of that red that I know I'm going to use in the background. So while I finish him up, let's just catch up. I can't believe that this is the last Friday of April. This month has really flown by. I've had to travel quite a bit. I had to. I did have to, but I took some trips this month. I went to Creativation earlier this year, which is always just so motivating and inspiring to connect with creative friends. So that was really nice. I was out of state I guess at the time that this goes up, last week. And I got to spend some time with our newest little baby family member, and that was just so wonderful. And then I have a trip. I will actually be on the trip when this video goes up with my daughter. We're going to San Francisco for a Girl Scouts bridging event. It's something that I did when I was her grade, bridging into the next, and I'm really excited to do the same with her. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of walking. I'll be very tired, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I did actually have one more trip that I was supposed to go for work, but I don't have to go now, and that was a relief. Just with 4 trips in April, that's a lot. So really excited that it got narrowed down to 3. But I do have a couple trips in May for work and a couple trips personal for June, and then it's going to be summer, which is crazy. So just trying to stay on top of my design team requirements as well as still having fun. I know that sometimes being on a lot of design teams, you start to not really craft as much for fun. So I am trying my best to narrow down my commitments so that way I have time for, my 9 to 5, my job, and then also time for my hobbies like leading my daughter's Girl Scout troop, and not that this is a hobby, but also spending time with my family, but then still making sure that creating is fun and not, a have to do, but a get to do. So yes, I am readjusting some of my commitments and just trying to lighten the load. I will probably I definitely won't be leaving any fandom companies because they are my absolute favorite to work with. So don't you worry if you're here for the fandom, that's not going anywhere. But yes, I am looking forward to my last trip of the month, but also I still can't believe we're at the end of April. This spring is just flying by. I am moved on now to my girl vampire, and I'm using the same colors that I did for my first vampire's hair and doing the same for her hair because they both have dark black hair. And then the same skin tone colors that I used for my other 2 vampires, I'm going to use for her as well. Again, just trying to keep that light tone since they are the undead. And then I will actually switch up the blacks that I use. So I'm using like the natural gray colors from Ohuhu for the hair, but I'm going to switch more to a cooler, more bluey tone black when I get to her dress, just to show like a distinction between the two. You could definitely use the same blacks. You don't have to. I guess it's green gray. It's not blue gray, but it's not as warm. It's much more on the cooler tone. So while I finish up her dress, like I said, I'm just using her and the gentleman in the maroon suit for today's card. But I did use the first vampire I colored on a more like purple and green. I know that sounds insane, but I used the ads for the show, there was like a whole media for the show that it was very purple and green. So I wanted to use that as inspiration for one of my cards. So I made a moon looking kind of inspired circle and added him and his familiar to the card. And then my last vampire, his eyes light up when he is feeding, I guess you could say. So I thought it'd be fun to make his card light up, and I use circle dies and a halo light so that the light comes up around him. I thought about using an easy light to just make his eyes light up, but I went with a halo because I wanted a glow around him, I guess, rather than just his eyes lighting up, but that would be a really fun idea as well. So for this vampire, the last one of the set that I'm coloring, he dresses in very kind of, I don't want to say boring, but that's the intent, very boring khaki and brown colors. So using that for the inspiration of coloring this character in. And then my last character, the familiar, I will darken his skin tone. I will say, now that I'm looking at it, I think I made his skin tone a little dark for his character, but I think it still looks pretty good. I think I was overcompensating after making all of my other vampires so pale. His skin tone's a little on the darker side, but that's okay. But I am going to color him in and then have him wear like his little chinos that he wears and a sweater. For this character, he does have a bald, mostly bald head, but he does have some like stubbly hair on the side of his head. And I didn't really want to color it a darker color. So I'm going to use the darkest shade of my skin tone, and I'm going to go back and just add more layers of color. Just coloring on top of each layer with the darker colors as it dries. So that way the color just builds up and it's darker rather than a different color being where his little hair stubbly part is. And he is a little tanner because he doesn't have such pale skin. Again, when it's this dark, it will dry back a bit. He does turn out to be much paler as time goes on. And then for the glasses, I decided to use the lightest shade of his skin tone to color in the glasses. I wanted there to be kind of an obvious glass there, so I didn't want the skin tone to come through. And then I'm going to use some blue markers to darken the edge of the glasses, and then a little bit lighter of a blue marker to color in the glasses. Again, just to give the look of the character wearing glasses, but still have that skin tone shine through. And here you can see I'm bringing in that darkest skin tone color one more time to darken those areas of his hair. And I'm going to do the same thing with the glasses for this character as he's wearing glasses as well. But again, doing a darker skin tone color for him because he's a person of color, and I wanted to make sure that he had actually colorful skin. And then the hair will be brown, and again, following media pictures for his outfit, for his shirt, sweater, and pants. So while we finish this up, I would love to know, hear from you guys if you are listening and you haven't skipped through the coloring, which I totally understand if you've skipped through the coloring. But I guess you wouldn't hear that if you did, but it's okay if you did. Just know that I forgive you. And but yeah, let me know. I need some more fandom ideas. I know I use a ton of fandom companies in my Fandom Fridays, but I would really like to take non-fandom companies and turn their products into a fandom. I did post last week, I believe, a Roger Rabbit inspired, Roger and Jessica Rabbit inspired card, although Jessica Rabbit was also a rabbit on my card. But they were using Lawn Fawn products, and I had envisioned making Roger Rabbit when I saw the adorable add-ons for the rabbit, the little overalls. I immediately thought of Roger Rabbit when I saw them, so I loved putting that together. But I obviously work with fandom companies like Kindred, Sassy, and Miss Ink Stamps, but I would love to know if you have some ideas that you want to see from me, and I will do my best to see if I can create it out of non-fandom companies. So if you have, characters or a fandom you'd like to see, let me know. I really am always looking for feedback. It may not happen right away. But I, want to create a list of things that you want to see so I can, bring you what you want. Thank you so much for always coming to my channel and watching my videos. So I would love to share more things that you want to see. So leave a comment. Let me know a fandom that you'd like to see that would be made from non-fandom supplies. Well, I am almost done here with this last character. I again was so excited to use this set. Like I said earlier, I quote this show a lot, and I was so excited to see that Kindred Stamps put together this stamp set with some really great sentiments. I I think this is definitely, if not my favorite, top 3 favorites of my shows, and I've been begging for someone to make this fandom, so I'm so excited to have it. While I did just make these 3 cards right now, I want to make like a billion more. And I want to make my own sentiments because there's so many good quotes from the show that I think it'd be really fun to make some additional sentiments that I could use with these characters as well. There are some ones with strong language that I really like, so it'd be really fun to step it up a little bit for myself and my friends that watch this show, which would probably just go to my husband. But as I wrap up coloring in this last area of the characters, I will go ahead and fussy cut all of them off camera. You can definitely use a scan and cut if you have that machine, but I just fussy cut around them, and here you can see my 2 couple, and that's going to be what I've used for my card. I have different supplies here. I thought about using the house and the like drippy portion of the die that I showed there for the apple, but I decided to just go with some dies that I already have from Kindred to create a background. So first I'm going to start with stenciling. I'm using the Celestial stencil with some black cardstock, and originally I added some Distress Oxide, but it didn't give enough brightness, as I should have known, but I thought I would try. And so I decided to use stencil paste. I'm using Game Over Lunar paste from Ranger Ink and Simon Hurley and just covering the stencil. So I use the palette knife to start to add the stencil or to add the paste onto the stencil, and then I use a large scraping tool to make sure that I have a thin layer, but enough to cover the paper, but a thin layer of that paste. And then I will just put the excess paste back into the container since I don't want to waste it. And I have a tray of soapy water, and I use that to put all of my supplies that have paste. So the stencil, the palette knife, the scraper, I set that in soapy water and let it soak until I have time to clean it. And I did use some masking tape or low tack tape to keep the stencil in place on the paper. So I went ahead and peeled those off and threw them away. And you can see how lovely that red looks on the black. I set it aside to dry, and you can see here now that it is dry. I'll go ahead and trim it down. It was an A2 piece of cardstock, but I'm going to trim it down to be slightly smaller than 4¼ by 5½. So I trimmed off just an 1/8 off of the top and side. I have this border die that I used from Kindred Stamps. It's called the Graveyard Scene Craft Die, and I cut it out of some dark gray cardstock. And I also cut out the Spiderweb craft die from the same, and that's going to be what creates my scene for these 2 characters. Now I did notice there are some crosses in the background, but you won't really see them when I layer everything together. So I wanted to darken these 2 up to give them just a little bit, darker on than the gray. So I brought in some Black Soot Distress ink and a blending brush, and I applied it to the sides and the bottom of the graveyard scene and the top of the spider web just to give it a dark edge that will go all the way around the card. I'm going to use liquid adhesive and I will glue the spider web to the top of the card. I did get my finger into one of the suns in that background, the paste, so that's going to be on the bottom. So I rotated it to have that fingerprint smudge be covered by my graveyard scene. So I'll go ahead and glue the spider web in place to the top. It will overhang a bit because I die cut it from an A2 piece of paper, and as I showed earlier, I did trim it down. So once that glue is dry enough to trim, I went ahead and just trimmed off the excess. For the bottom part, I want to pop it up with foam adhesive. So I'm going to apply the foam to the back side of this piece of cardstock. I won't go all the way to the edge on the right, but that's just because I know I'm going to trim it down. So I filled that up with foam adhesive. I did use black, and I'm going to attach this to the bottom of my card front. I'm making sure to line it up with the bottom and side and then trimmed off that excess. Now that that is done, we can build on adding our characters. I'm going to mix using some foam adhesive and liquid adhesive. So foam on the back of their heads where it will overlap the stenciled background, and then I will add liquid adhesive to the bottom part where they overlap with the graveyard scene. And I realized that I did not put the glue on, so I added it real quick and attached them to the card front. I wanted to add a sentiment. I was going to add it on a banner, but I decided just to add it right onto the card, which I know is very daring. I used some anti-static powder on the bottom part of my card front, and I stamped the sentiment "Our love is immortal" with an embossing ink, and I'm using a detailed white embossing powder to add the white detail for the sentiment. I used my heat gun to melt that powder down. I tried to get it really hot first and then keep it quick to make sure that that card front stayed flat. And once it melted down, I added adhesive to the back of the card front, or once it cooled down too, but I added adhesive to the back of the card front and attached it to my card base, which is a top folding A2 card. I do need to clean it up a little bit. I still have anti-static powder everywhere, but this is how really cute and fun this card turned out. I liked the black and red and keeping the center those two hilarious characters from this fandom. I hope you enjoyed today's video. You can find the link to the Kindred shop down below in my description, and don't forget to leave me that comment. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!